Welcome back, everybody, to Chaps Many Cultures, episode 213, the show where too much culture is never enough. I think that's how we used to say it. And today we're going to talk about lists, rankings of locations, countries, cities, ranked by their attractiveness or livability towards people like us, expats or immigrants, people who live and work outside of their national culture. Is there a good place to be, or is there less place where you want to be? Let's find out now.
Welcome back. Just another episode in this long series, this long drawn out series of just us two guys hanging out, shooting the breeze. And hopefully you find it of interest, and of interest, of course, if you are preparing for an international move, if you happen to be doing it for work, love, maybe you just want to go and explore the world. Of course, we often get into research. We've got a lot of information at our fingertips nowadays. We can find them anywhere, right? And one of these things that you can find is rankings that come up on social media sites and different sites from time to time that try to rank the livability of certain cities and locations, countries, in anticipation that somebody might be interested in that. And of course, we're interested in it because we work a lot with people that move to these places. However, how much veracity is in these lists?
That's a good question. And I feel tempted, just like many of you out there, when they see, oh, Portugal is the place to be, or Germany is the place to avoid, or whatever it might be, whatever the headline is. And sure, I click on it and see, so where's my city? Where's my country, or a country that I used to live in, or a city that I like very much? How does that rank? Of course, it's clickbait to a certain degree. It gets attention quickly because it simplifies a message into a social media compatible headline. And yet, do we really know? Can we really say one place is better for expats than others? What does that depend upon? Now, there is a platform that I think has probably the most veracity of them all when it comes to these surveys. It's called Intonations. Some of you might be familiar with it. Intonations. I think it's .org, right? It's
Yeah.
And they ask expats, and they asked some 12,000 expats the last time around. They do this annual survey, and they cluster the questions in certain pockets of interest, whether it be education, healthcare, government services, housing market, earning potential, career propellant, yes or no, safety. And so they're really relevant criteria that they ask in these surveys. And then as a result, we get a list of countries that might be super hot and cool for expats to go to, or countries that are like, yeah, maybe think twice about that location. And I often wonder, because some of these locations that are in the not so nice category, I've been to these places. And I wonder what makes people speak so negatively of these countries or cities. How bad can expat life be to rank a country in a not so desirable position on a list? I'm sometimes struggling to comprehend that. What about you, Brett?
A little bit too, yes. And of course, sometimes we get asked about these places, whether we have experience there or not, or whether, of course, in the long time we've been doing this, we've worked with people from these places. And I think a lot of it is just really heavily subjective. Of course, Intonations is not the only place that does these type of surveys. There's a number of organizations that do, and you're going to find that many of these lists are not the same. There is not a general pattern. In fact, it's surprising how different it is, right? So it's really important then to dig into the demographics. And again, back to the Internations one, they are very transparent with the demographics and or finding out who is responding to these surveys. And over the 12,000 people they used, of course, there seemed to be, surprising for me, a very minimum amount of people who are actually expats moving for work, people who are going on an assignment for a short period of time, and short period we mean 2 to say 5 years, with the intention of returning home. It is a relatively small percentage. The others, the vast percentage, is people that have emigrated or gone there to follow a partner, maybe just adventure, yeah, maybe starting a business. And of course, their motivations would be different than an expat or a short-term expat. So understanding these demographics first before you think about what is the results in these surveys and have it influence how you anticipate your experience is really important. And of course, for us, we're proponents of cultural training as an important aspect of this. But when it comes to housing and finance and all of those things that are going to support you, an expat is more likely to be supported by those if they've got a very caring company that wants to ensure their success. However, somebody that's doing it under their own steam may not have that.
True. And if we're looking at only the expat populations, if we really let them answer that, we still have a variable in this survey data, because can you imagine that there's a different answer to the same question depending on where you are in your global journey? If you're still unpacking your suitcases or your moving boxes and you only recently arrived in your foreign location, and this might be your first time going abroad for a period of time, then your answers will very likely be different than an answer of somebody who might be what we call a serial expat. This might be their second or third foreign assignment, and maybe they're already at the tail end of their stint in that particular country. You have a different opinion, a different view of your host location if you're more familiar with it. So if everything is new and unknown, everything that you don't like or don't understand or disapprove of in the beginning, in a survey like that, you're very likely to flag that as, oh, this sucks here and don't come here because this is ugh. But 3, 4, 5 years in, you've learned how to handle yourself in that culture. You understand the nuances. You understand how to navigate your life in that environment. Obviously, your answers will be a lot different. And that might make the survey results a little bit, I don't know, a little less accurate, maybe? I'm phrasing that as a question.
Absolutely. You can imagine a scenario where somebody gets offered a job and a position, or they're asked to consider moving to another country. And of course, they come home and she sits at the dinner table with her husband and says, hey, we've got the chance to move to this place. And of course, usually the partner's mind might move to, I better find out of this place. I've never actually been there. Let's do a little bit of research. And of course, that's where people go down those rabbit holes. And so the disconnect, of course, the person who's working in the company may interact with people in that site already and understand some of the nuances, or maybe even have traveled there on business trips. Partners don't have that insight, and children don't have that insight, and things like that. Is just what we just argue and advise is just to be a little bit more, just look at these with a bit of a grain of salt, certainly as a starting point. But really, when it gets down to it, any support that you can have around you in terms of people that have had experience, their real experience, that are willing to give you some of the more nuanced aspects of the culture. And of course, this is what we do. We offer those through the cultural training, because cultural training is really essentially looking at yourself first, right? Because your neighbor might go to the same place and want different things from life, have different values. So there are different things in different countries that might offend or match with your values. That's another aspect of it. It's so complicated. We could sit, when I first sent this topic to Christian, he said, oh yeah, I could do this all day. Right? We can sit here all day.
I said I could rant about this.
Yeah, ranting is another thing, right? That's a whole other thing.
But
Yes, that's not, that's for another channel.
Look at that list. Look at the current internations top 10. Is Mexico in first place? So fantastic. Good for Mexico.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
is Mexico the same across the country? Does it matter whether you live in Mexico City and within the city, which is huge, by the way, for those who haven't been? That's a major big city, bigger than any of the United States cities or any of the European cities. So does it matter if you're in Mexico City or in, I don't know, Veracruz or Guadalajara or, I don't know, Mérida in Yucatan? Of course that matters, just like it matters whether you are in rural China or in Shanghai, or whether you're in a small community in Germany working for your very specialized international manufacturer of a certain niche product, or whether you're in Berlin. Right? Questions of housing, schooling, security are very different within a country. So if you say, yeah, Mexico is number one, fantastic, but maybe somebody who's going into an area of Mexico where safety and security is a big concern and therefore a very high priority, that will be a different answer to the same question compared to somebody who goes to a beach town in Mexico where they don't have to worry about things like this. So take it with a grain of salt. And if you look at the top 10 list, I also see, and I'm peeking over to my cheat sheet, there's also Malaysia and Panama, Thailand and Costa Rica, and Portugal is in the top 10. All fantastic locations. And many of those countries in recent years that have gained notoriety and popularity as great vacation destinations. So it's easy to say, I'm liking it here because of all the vacational aspects of my location. That would be the answer of a newly arrival, right? Somebody who's been there for 5 years and has worked through the sometimes complex way of Costa Rican bureaucracy and doesn't speak Spanish well enough to navigate that, they might have a different answer to the same question. So double check that.
Absolutely. And we did see on this list that Germany was way down there. That's unusual for me. And I thought, my friend is not going to be happy about that. He's going to like, that might be
Germany, what is going on? And I looked at the data, and usually data doesn't lie. And in this case, I have to agree with some of the concerns that some expats have about Germany. Bureaucracy, horrible for a non-German to navigate that. A non-German speaker will be confronted with the language aspect and with the fact that making new connections, friends in a German-speaking culture might be difficult as a newcomer. But again, it depends on where you come from. If you move to Germany from Switzerland, from the Netherlands, from Denmark, or from Austria, then the adjustment process will be fairly minimal. If you move to Germany from Mexico, US, or Australia, then Germany will hit you like a ton of bricks. Yes, it really depends on whom you ask that question. Right?
And you may not think you look good in a set of Lederhausen. That's
very few people do.
I'm not even going to go there. So,
I'm saying
so that's
cultural
it. That's
appropriation is the key term here.
It's cultural appropriation. So that's the question today. That's what we've got. If you came here looking for a definitive answer on what is the best place or worst place to go to in the world, I'm sorry, we have let you down, which is usually the case that everything we do might let you down.
Yeah, no, let's not go there. I don't think we'll let anybody down. I think what is really critical is, as we often say, check for the nuance, because what makes one place great for some person will make it horrible for another. I personally love certain places around the world. I love visiting some of them. Would I want to live in them? Probably not. And then there are other places that I love to stay in, and I wish I could stay longer, and I'm fantasizing about having a more permanent place there. Yes, but that doesn't mean that even my wife thinks the same way. So it really depends on what are you looking for in your international assignment, and what are your expectations. And just like Brett said earlier, if you don't get the preparation for the culture that you're entering, any difference will affect you. And some of them will affect you negatively. Right? If you don't know what you're going into, then you might be surprised by what this destination has in store for you. If your employer prepares you with destination services, language training, cultural training, and coaching for your assignment, there will be a lot less surprises and therefore a lot less disappointment or mismanaged expectations.
Absolutely. So that's it. We will include actually some of the other assessments or surveys that we've discovered in our rudimentary research into this topic, and you can judge for yourself. Have a look at the variations that are there. Have a look at the demographics. Have a look at the context of the questions that have been asked, and that will show you pretty quick just what we've seen. It is very subjective, but of course a great starting point for anybody who might be doing that research. We will include that in the links, and also don't forget to subscribe. 2 channels to choose from here. Just subscribe to both channels, and also if you want to hit that bell so that you can be reminded or notified when we pop up, which is usually about once a week. We may slip a few extra ones in here and there, but usually now we're going to do this once a week. And we thank you again for watching. And this has been episode 213.
Ring our bell.
Lucky for some, ring the bell. So no matter where you are, whether you like it or not, or whether other people like it or not, we are happy to hear from you. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Ciao for now.